Hello, everybody, and welcome. How are you doing? On today's show, we're going to be talking about the most haunted bookshop that there is. Well, at least what some say. Then we're talking about how more children are recalling past lives. And then the paranormal and how sometimes they combine with government agencies. And last but not least, I found an article on a forum board because I love scouring those forum boards to see how people think and whatnot. And I found an article. This is nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields and monitors within TVs, and of course, monitors for computer. So, all that and more when we come back. Let's get started. Welcome to the Shadows of the Moon podcast, where we talk about paranormal, cryptids, UFO and alien encounters, plus other bizarre and strangeness from the interwebs. Whether you're listening on YouTube or any of the multitude of podcasting sites, thank you so much for being here. All links to what I'm talking about in today's show are down in the description, as well as the links to join our community on Facebook and Discord, and of course, all my other social media platforms, so feel free to get in touch. If you have donated, liked, or shared the podcast out, or even all three, I can't thank you enough. They are so all very much appreciated. And remember, if you have a story or encounter to share, all those links to do so are also down in the description below. And remember, you can always remain anonymous if you would like. Just let me know. All right, let's get started. Grab your favorite drinks and your snacks and sit back and relax and have a listen. Definitely have some interesting things to talk about today. I am excited for this show, especially that last article. Oh my God, it has got my brain in an uproar. But let's get started with the first story. Like I said, is a haunted bookstore. A lot of people are saying that this is the most haunted bookshop that there is. Hmm, shall we see? So, tucked away in a corner of Wellington Plaza in Barrie, Ontario, Canada, which is not too far from me. So, I might have to take a trip up to Canada one day and check this out because I definitely want to check it out. Um, there's a charming little bookstore called Rivendell Books, named for the elven kingdom of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And complete with a little elf printed on the business card. The little bookshop specializes in used, rare, antique, and out of print books and has, according to its owner, Wendy Cahill, has too many books to count. The store was opened about a decade ago, and back in these days, it used to be that you could basically bring in your books and a deal could be made right there on the spot. So over the years, the books piled up and is now known as a bit of a paradise for rare book lovers, which is awesome. That's what I would love to go see. I want to see what old books they have. But anyway, so the books have piled up and you can spend hours wandering through rows stuffed with old books. immersed in the smell of them and surrounded by walls painted green to invoke the feeling of being in a forest. And there are even chairs to relax in and a kids section for young ones to play while their parents pursue the aisles. It really seems like a cozy family oriented place. Not all not at all the sort of place one would expect to find ghosts. Yet Rivendell Books has gathered a reputation for not only being a haunted bookstore, but indeed one of the most haunted places in Ontario. Kinda crazy. So, Cahill first became aware of the haunting when her and her husband began finding things out of place that neither of them had moved, or either that or books had moved to different locations during the night when the shop was closed. This graduated to finding whole piles of books stacked up on the floor. Cahill says of this: on Saturday nights, my husband and I have a routine where we clean the store. I vacuum and dust from back to front. Then my husband goes from back to front and washes all the floors. And then we go out the front door. When we came back on Sunday, there would be neatly piled stacks of books on the floor, always in the same section, the war section. There's enough room between the shelves that they couldn't have fallen, or even if they had fallen, they would have not fallen in a nice, neat pile. It's happened quite a few times, and there's no explanation as far as we know. Nobody else has keys, and I'm not really a believer in ghosts myself. Oddly, the books that were out of place or piled up were always the topics of World War One or World War Two, and it was all rather perplexing to be sure. Not long after this started happening, people began reporting seeing an elderly, gray haired man in an old fashioned clothing wandering about the history section, always around the books on World War One and World War Two. And although he looked very real and solid, he would vanish into thin air when anyone tried to talk to him. Although sometimes he was known to wave before doing so. That would be wild to see, right? In some cases, there were reports from customers who claimed that they had been tapped or to have to buy a book they are reading pulled away from them by an unseen hands. That wouldn't be cool. Visitors and employees would also have incidences of doors shutting on their own or feeling of cold, even in the middle of summer. There have been witnesses who saw the ghost without even being in the bookstore. In one such account, a woman standing at the nearby pharmacy saw an elderly man pacing about outside of the bookshop during closed hours, looking agitated, before finally phasing right through the glass storefront to enter the premises. Even stranger than seeing this spectral, World War One or World War buff looking at books is that he is apparently will even follow people who buy books on World War One or World War Two home. Kell says in one such case, a customer once bought a military book, but brought it back a couple days later, and he was white as a ghost. It was an older book on the First World War. He said an older gentleman bought the book, but 2 days later he brought it back to the store for me. He said he awakened during the night to see a ghostly figure of an elderly man. The man was walking through his bedroom holding on to the book. He said they made eye contact and the ghost walked into his closet, disappeared, and the book fell to the ground. He was terrified. He said he went to see the minister, who told him just to get rid of the book. They brought in a psychic who said that it was an elderly man who had lived through the First and Second World War, who never had any money. Now he's just here wanting to read the books. And when he seen that a customer had taken it home, It was determined that the spirit had been reading that book and wasn't finished before it was bought. Oh man. Wow, that's crazy. They go on to say that the book would pass hands to another customer who reportedly something very similar. The witness claims that the first night he brought the book home, he woke in the middle of the night to be staring at a sight of an older man standing over his bed, dressed in old fashioned clothing and with a rope tied around his waist for some reason. The man apparently waved at him before vanishing. The man kept the book, but the following night, his room was filled with a smell of flowers that came out of nowhere. And another night, he awoke to the sound of the ghost flipping through the pages of his book. The last straw was when he woke up to yet another night to find a bright red curtain hanging over his closet door. The man would consult a priest who told him to get rid of the book, so he brought it back. Before long, Cahill realized that the haunting had started when her store had brought in that particular book, implying that perhaps the alleged ghost is not tied to the location itself, but rather than that specific book. Maybe it's about him. You never know. This wouldn't be the first case of a haunted item, and tales of the paranormal cover a wide range of such objects, from cars to jewelry, dolls, paintings, even wedding dresses and chairs, among other things, which the ghost has, for whatever reason, bound itself to what is often referred to as a spiritual attachment. Librarian and paranormal writer Helen Power has mused on this and brought up a lot of good questions, saying the story seems to be point to the idea that it's the book itself that is haunted. Why did the ghost follow the customer home? What is so special about that specific book? Who is the previous owner? How did Rivendell Books come to sell it? Were there any sightings of the ghost at Rivendell Books during the weeks that someone owned the books? Is the spirit attached to the book itself? Or is he making nighttime field trips to find his favorite read? If he is haunting the book about World War I, what decade would he have died in? And what's the significance of the rope tied around his waist? Actually, I've heard that before, to where like people that lived during those times had rope belts, basically. I've seen a lot of pictures with that. I don't know what the significance is. If they, maybe he just didn't have a belt. I don't know. But it is possible. She said that the ghost is haunting the book because of its contents, because of what it does or doesn't say about him personally. Was he a forgotten war hero who was only mentioned in one specific book? Is this ghost haunting one of the last copies? Hopefully, hopeful that his legacy won't be forgotten. There are so many questions that cannot be answered. Rather oddly, although, the haunting at Riverdale Books seems exclusively confined to the history section, and specifically around that particular World War I book. There has been at least one serious spooky account from another section of the store, this time dealing with a more macabre book. Power has said this of the case. One day, Cahill was working in the back of the bookstore when she heard a loud thump. She raced toward the source of the sound and found a biography of Charles Manson laying on the floor, his dead eyes staring up at her. She stood frozen in terror as the books flew off the shelves all around her. They were caught up by an invisible wind that whipped them through the air and flung them at her feet. It is believable that this ghost would do this? Or is it believable that this ghost would do this? This seems to be a great giant stretch from what the spirit has been seen doing previously. And why Charles Manson? You know? Especially if he was obsessed with a World War I book. Why would he be throwing around Charles Manson books? Was he looking to branch out in his reading and didn't like what he learned? Did the content maybe upset him? I mean, I don't blame him. Charles Manson was pretty sick. Still, there's no excuse to throw a tantrum. What was going on here, right? What is going on here? It's crazy to think about. The haunting of Riverdale books has over the years drawn an interest from a number of paranormal investigators. One of these is the Haunted Berry Meetup Group, which uses equipment such as video cameras, audio recorders, photo cameras, and EMF detectors. Although they did claim to get some strange readings in the shop, they nevertheless explained this as a probably coming from more mundane phenomenon, not evidence of a ghost in this case. Um, excuse me. Sorry, I'm still getting over my cold. Um, so Tara Vandermeulen, assistant organizer of the group, says the group typically tries to eliminate the more rational explanations before jumping into the conclusions that it's ghosts. And she said this: we wanted to be able to rule things out, like what's a more reasonable explanation. People always get excited when they experience something because, yeah, they want to see a ghost or they don't want to see a ghost. We know that, but we try to keep them busy and active so they're not looking for things that aren't there. If we get something on recording, we want to be able to rule it out as anything else. And if we can't, we try to reenact it. If we still can't, then potentially it's a good piece of paranormal evidence. Everybody wants to believe that there's a ghost, so when you explain stuff away, they don't always love you for it. That is so true. We still want to have fun, but we also want to educate people. The Paranormal Investigation Ghost Girls of Simcoe County apparently investigated the shop and had much more dramatic results. In this case, they claimed that there were many ghosts in Rivendell books and that it was the scariest place they'd ever been. One spirit, they claimed, uh, said to be lurking there is a decidedly malevolent presence. Wow. Yeah. Missyisms, which says haunts the book room in the back room of the store. They claim that when they tried to record in the book room or in the back room, their equipment went haywire and they were able to only capture some fleeting images of dark, shadowy figure. The testimony plus the incident where the Manson books makes you wonder if maybe they're right. And there is more than one spirit lurking and haunting the shop. After all, neither of these two cases sound like the doing of a kindly old man who, by all accounts, is harmless and just wants to read his books. If there is more than one spirit here, then why should this be? They seem to be no darker or sinister history associated with the shop itself or the land it sits on. So they attached to the books as well? Who knows? In the end, we are left to ask, why is this quaint little quiet bookshop circled by such strange phenomenon, and what does it all mean? For now, it's a mystery. That's a pretty cool story. I mean, I definitely still want to go up and explore it because that would be really cool. Um, but it sounds like there might be more than one spirit there. That book, definitely the guy with the book, the elderly gentleman that probably served in World War One or World War Two. I mean, I'd like to know what the book was, to be honest with you. I want to know what book it is that he would, go home with people with. I'm not saying I would buy it, but I would like to check it out and read it. And see what it was about. And maybe he is mentioned in there. Maybe it's about him. I definitely would love to check that out. As far as the more sinister, if that's the only incident with the Manson books that came about, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Ghost Girls, I watched their show um a long, long time ago. I'd have to go and rewatch it to remember them. Um, but I don't know. I would definitely. Would you check it out? Would you guys go up and check it out? I would love to. I know a couple people that are by there. I wonder if they know about it. I'll have to. Maybe I'll reach out to them and see if they would go up there and maybe meet them up there. Because Ontario is honestly not that far away from here. It's just getting over the Peace Bridge because that takes 2 hours in itself usually. Um, but yeah, that'd be cool to experience. If I do go up there, I would definitely record and let you guys know. All right, the next portion of this would be. Oh, hold on one second. What's going on? Okay. That more children are recalling past lives. It's from Mysterious Universe, so it's the first one. Like I said, all the links are in the description below, as usual. Um, yeah, so they're saying more children are recalling past lives. It says most people who follow the lore surrounding this topic are familiar with some of the widely publicized cases of young children who appear to describe memories of things that have happened before they were born. Among the most famous is James Lanier, who claimed to have memories of being a World War II fighter pilot. If you have not heard his story, definitely go check it out because it is wild. He supplied many details that match actual events from that era. Some people claim to have debunked the story, but all they have done is offer alternative explanations. Another was Christopher Hupp, who had believed to have been a New York Yankees legend, Lou Gehrig, in a previous life. There's also Ryan Hammonds, who has childhood memories of working as a Hollywood extra in the 1930s. Other examples abound. Earlier this year, um, who was doing this article? Oh, Jazz Shaw. He said he was contacted by a woman who was directed to me by a mutual friend who knows my interest in obscure topics. Her daughters had been saying things that were eerily similar in tone. Though not involving any famous athletes or actors, the child's behavior had not been particularly unusual after first learning to speak, but that changed when she had taken her first day of preschool at age 4. That issues began to arise before they had even left the house. The child, who the mother described as normally being good natured and, you know, began complaining as she was dressed for school. Insisting that she was wearing the wrong clothes. She insisted that she needs to be wearing a dark skirt and a white blouse. Her mother assured her that the new school clothes they had purchased would be fine. Upon arriving at the preschool, the woman's daughter again insisted that they were at the wrong place. Upon being brought to the classroom where other parents and children were checking in, her daughter pointed out that the clothing of all the other children and said that they all needed to be dressed in the same. A similar reaction was observed when she was introduced to her teacher. She said the teacher wasn't wearing the proper attire either, saying that it was not how the sisters dressed. She was shown the fenced in playground behind the school where she claimed that the swings and other equipment were not the same as when I used to go to school. That's crazy. Can you imagine taking your kid to school and then saying that? That caught the mother's attention, and she pointed out that this was her first day of school. Her daughter disagreed, saying that there should be a particular type of house next door to the yard where lived a lady with a mean dog that had bitten her, saying, "I still have the marks," pointing out to her hand. Sure enough, The mother has a picture of her daughter's hand, and it does indeed have a U shaped birthmark, consisting of a series of small, rough circular blotches between the thumb and forefinger that could be mistaken for a tooth pattern of a small dog. And what did they say, though? They honestly say that birthmarks are how you died in a previous life. I mean, I'm not saying she died from the bite marks, but maybe there's something to that. Um, it appears to be a persistent pigmented birthmark rather than a vascular or melanocytic one. Yeah, I'm not saying that word. You guys know. You're smart. The child appears to have quickly settled into her new school, accepting her new environment and making new friends. So it appears she's doing well. But her mother remembered watching some documentaries about past life memories and had dwelled on them. She tried to talk to her daughter about the issue, but the girl never provided many more details and couldn't provide the names of the school where she is supposed to be attending or the names of any teachers. But the phrase, the sisters, stuck with her, indicating, assuming, that these are somehow real memories, that her daughter was almost certainly referring to a Catholic school, which would, you know, explain the white shirts and dark skirts, too. The family is not religious, and the child had not had any exposure to churches prior to these events. She even looked up the location of the Catholic schools in the area and came up with an excuse to drive her daughter around to them, and she didn't recognize any of them. I wonder what was at the school before. I wonder if they did any of that, you know, researched what was at this school. Was there a church before that school? She was telling our mutual friend about all this when he suggested that she contact me. She agreed and was willing to let me report on her experience if her privacy could be assured. She also asked if I had any advice how to proceed or if it would be better to simply drop it. I did some checking and found out there are university studies taking place that treat the subject of possible past life memories seriously and suggested that she contacted one of them for more professional advice. One such program, among several, is underway at the University of Virginia of School of Medicine, where they're doing similar work. Unfortunately, nothing from this woman's stories offers any hard specific details to check against the historical records, unlike some of the more famous cases I noted above. But when the woman suggested that the failure of her daughter to recognize any of the Catholic schools within driving distance of her home might indicate that these were false memories. From where, though? I mean, I don't know. That I felt compelled to point out that other well researched cases involved the person's second life beginning far from where the last one took place, potentially not even in the same country. Perhaps the child will remember more in the future. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that past life, I mean that one child that James there, he when he was talking about being a World War II fighter pilot, that is such an interesting story. Like I said, if you haven't heard about it, go check it out because it is so freaking cool. Um, and I mean, what do you guys think? Now, my belief is that we all live in different timelines. You know what I mean? Like I'm living a different life in other timelines, right? I mean, if there is a way that paranormal, UFO, encrypted timelines or whatever can touch, I'm sure that these timelines, our timelines, can touch and become transparent at some point in time. Hell, I mean, when we do paranormal investigations, I believe that a lot of the spirit activity that people encounter is other timelines living where they live now. I don't believe it's actual. I mean, some of it, yes, can be actual spirits of people past, but it's just different timelines happening at once. So that shadow figure you see could be just somebody walking in their own home and then see you there and go like, what the hell? They're in their own timeline going, what the hell is that? And it's you. They just can't see you because you're a shadow figure in their world. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, right? All right, let's go on to the next. So, our next story is about the paranormal, the occult, and the supernatural. Sometimes they combine with government agencies. While many people, billions in fact, hold deep, cherished beliefs that it comes to the issue of life or death and all powerful gods or goddess, there is no doubt at all that religion can be used for a tool of control. Very true, right? And very often does via two particular issues, fear and guilt. The fear angle revolves around what you may personally think will happen to you if you don't go to church, or if you do not recognize the existence of an all powerful creator. The guilt is prompted by doing those that your own religious book of choice tells you that you shouldn't do. There are other ways in which religion has been used as a tool of manipulation, but in a very novel, strange, disturbing, and even dangerous fashion. We'll begin with a classified program that was born out of the heart of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA for short. The program is known as Operation Often, and it was created in the 1960s. It still exists to this day under a still classified new name. The idea was to try and use certain aspects of religion to disrupt or even destroy the enemy. Now, in the 60s, that enemy would have been the Russians. Today, it still would be. And with North Korea thrown in the mix too, no doubt the process was, to say the least, alarming. Operation Often plans involved trying to utilize the supernatural power of demons, yes, real demons, to attack the enemy. Sound unbelievable? It almost is. Now, I mean, if you think about it, okay, say like North Korea. A lot of their people, a lot of North Koreans do not know about our military, how big our military is, because the dictatorship or whatever, I forget what they're called over there. Um, anyway, the leader tells them that they have a bigger army than we do, that they have bigger military. They have more tanks, more rockets, more than we do. And because of the way everything works over there, they believe it. Well, if you don't believe it, you might get killed. I don't know. But that's how it works over there. I've seen many, you know, and who's to say? I mean, who is to say that U.S. has a bigger army than anybody or military presence than anybody? I mean, we've seen it, yes, but is that really true? It's crazy if you think about it. Really, go go research some of things that North Korea has told their people that isn't true, and they have no way of finding out the truth because certain programs can't be seen over there. Obviously our stuff can't be seen over there. So, I mean, they're only going by what they're told. This is the one person more than any other who sought to bring the Operation Off into life was a man named Sidney Gottlieb. Interestingly, Sidney was someone who was a major player in the CIA's mind control theme project MK Ultra, about which we've seen a great deal, right? Then he was a brilliant man, someone who recognized the importance of thinking outside the box, and particularly so when it came to matters relative to control and manipulation. Then he was the perfect person to get Operation Often off the ground. But let's back up a bit and take a look at the earlier years of Gottlieb's life. So Sidney Gottlieb um, possessed a brilliant mind that much is obvious. As in the 1940s, he obtained a PhD in chemistry from California Institute of Technology. As the 1940s became the 1950s, he was given one of those offers that are very hard to refuse, and particularly so when that same offer comes from the highest levels of the CIA. It was a position that saw Gottlieb take on a lofty and powerful job as head of the chemical division of the CIA's technical service staff. It was from within this particular office that Gottlieb oversaw numerous controversial programs. They included researches into hypnosis, mind manipulation, mind control, fabricating alien encounters by dosing people with hallucinogenic substances, and even created slaves like assassins. People skilled in killing people and making it look like a suicide or an accident, and who, as a result of having been programmed by MK Ultra, would follow every order and dirty and deadly deed given to them. It was a direct result of the success Gottlieb had in the field of manipulating the human mind, which led him to run Operation Often more than a decade after he began working at the CIA. The offer was put into Gottlieb by Richard Helms. At the time, Helms was a director of the CIA, which was one of the most powerful jobs within the U.S. government. It still is. Far more than satisfied with Gottlieb's work in mind control, Helms arranged for a behind the closed doors meeting with Gottlieb to discuss a very different program, but which still had its issues of control and manipulation very much evident. Gottlieb sat and listened as Helms outlined the plan. Having worked on the fabrication of certain UFO events, Gottlieb was fully aware that the CIA was willing to go to some very weird lengths to achieve its goals. Even Gottlieb found this new program almost unbelievable. The idea was to take the worst parts of the domains of the afterlife and region, demons, curses, and supernatural powers, and use them against America's biggest threats. Although astounded, eagerly took on the challenge. Financing to the amount of $150,000 was immediately given to the program, and Operation Often was up and running. As amazing as that may sound, although the program was definitely the creation of the CIA, not all of its members were in the employ of the agency. In fact, many of them weren't even a part of the U.S. Intelligence Committee. Drafted into the program and required to sign releases, forms, and take secret oaths were priests, experts in the field of demonology, Satanists, psychics, and even tarot readers. The plan was for any and all of these people, when needed, to offer their secret services to Uncle Sam, and they certainly did that. There is no doubt that the most disturbing, sinister aspect of the work undertaken by Operation Often was that which was dealt with ways to cause death, but making it look like something far more innocent in nature. Now, on several occasions, attempts were made to try and summon up ancient Babylonian demons, even to the point of trying to enrage in what can only be termed pacts. Of course, it was not a case of such demonic things literally materializing in the offices of the CIA. Rather than demonologists brought on board would try and contact such paranormal monsters in a mind to mind fashion. In some cases, they claimed it worked. The demonologists said that they had successfully got a message across. Needless to say, such pacts scarcely even turned out to have positive results. And that was the same for Operation Often. There were deaths on the program, deaths that couldn't be explained, and at least they couldn't be explained in conventional terms. There were even more controversial rumors, all suggesting that they had been some sort of success. The supernatural entities that Operation Often's team successfully called forth agreed to take the lives of whoever was the team, whoever the person was that the team wanted gone. Russian officials, spies of the KGB, Chinese officials, the list went on and on. But there was always a cost to Operation Often, which is why eventually this aspect of the project was shut down. The cost was seen as being just too great. Clearly, the demonic thing had no love for either side. Duh. They just maliciously and evilly enjoyed taking out both. Of the many and varied people who agreed to become on board with the Operation Often was, wow, I just read this for the first time and it surprises me. One was an English woman named Sybil Leek. She was a witch who penned many books, including the Sybil Leek Book of Fortune Telling, Sybil Leek's Book of Curses, Star Speak, and Moon Signs. And before being drafted in Operation Often in the late 60s, Leek had a long and intriguing life in England, most of which was based around her fascination for witchcraft. Leek was brought into the witchy old religion-driven fold by her father when she was just a child. She was immediately drawn to the supernatural and allured that beckoned and was taught in ways of a witch by a secondary family member, Leek's grandmother, who had a lifelong exposure to the black arts. One of those Leek got to know well was the infamous occultist Aleister Crowley, who died in 1947. In fact, it was Crowley who suggested that young Sybil should take up writing. Clearly, she followed his suggestion, although she was born in the center part of England. Leek soon got the travel book while she got the travel bug, I'm thinking, while she was still in her teens. So she joined a French witch coven, after which she had put down its roots in the New Forest, a vast area of woodland in the south of England. In fact, her home was in the forest. Indeed, she lived a definitely wild life. While living and lurking in the hearts of those enchanting woods, Leek achieved the position of High Priestess of what's called the Nine Covens Council, and also got to know a man named Gerald Gardner. Hello? Okay, sorry folks. If you are listening on the YouTube side of this is part 2 of the podcast. Thought somebody came into my house. Unfortunately, when you're recording with OBS, you don't have a pause button like Odyssey, or Audacity or whatever it's called. Um, so I had to leave to go check, but it was just a dog coming to sit by the door. But usually I hear his nails, and I didn't hear his nails this time, so it sounded like somebody walking up to my door. But anyway, like I was saying, she met Gerald Gardner. It's interesting to note that Gardner, who is one of the most influential people. Oh, let me just say too, if you're listening on the podcast, you shouldn't have a break. It should play all the way through. This is only for the YouTube side. But anyway, an interesting note that Gardner, who was one of the most influential people in the field of Wicca, was secretly hired by the British intelligence at the height of the Second World War, chiefly to see if the supernatural power of the witch might go some way towards defeating Adolf Hitler. It became known as Operation Cone of Power. Gardner informed his intelligence contacts of Leake's skills, and as a result, she was hired to create faked horoscopes to try and affect the moral of the Nazis, who were, to a large degree, deeply driven by horoscopes. You know that Adolf Hitler and Stalin and all them, they were, you know, totally into the occult. Um, so that Aleister Crowley also worked for British intelligence in the First World War, and that he was friends with Leake almost and that he was friends with Leake almost certainly led to the government's decision to bring Leake on board. In all probability, too, it was Leake's quite significant ties to the British government, to top secret programs, and to the religions of the old, which led her to become a candidate for Operation Often, her area of expertise being the creation and sending of curses. Now, Operations Often work from the latter part of the 1960s to the early 70s is known to a small degree. The data above accounting was just all about what is known outside of the official secret circles. Post approximately 71 to 72, though, the picture becomes a murkier still. To the extent that, aside from a few whispered confirmations that the program is still around, very little is known of its work in the field of religion, old and new. There is, however, another group that is performing an almost identical task. It goes by the nickname of the Collins Elite. That's its official title, completely unknown outside of the US government. Unlike Operation Often, we don't know how long the Collins Elite has been in existence. In some form, at least it appears that it has been around since the 1950s, but at a time when very little work was undertaken. Back then, it was very much a think tank type organization, which on the occasion had occasional meetings here and there. It appears, though, that the program upped its work and status in the 1970s when the project became much more ambitious and in its activities and goals. We would very likely not known of Colin Elites were it not for one man, and that man is Ray Bosch. Sorry if I pronounce that wrong. It could be Bocce, I don't know. But anyway, he was what may well be a unique background. Not only is Bocce a practicing priest, he is also a dedicated UFO researcher. Indeed, back in the 80s, Bosch and the state director for MUFON, he was the state director for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, the largest, of course, UFO research group in the United States. In November of 1991, Bosch was secretly approached by a pair of physicists working on a highly classified project, U.S. Department of Defense project that, just like Operation Often in the late 60s, and was certainly through to at least the early 70s, was focused around trying to contact demonic beings and attempting to understand and replicate their power, all for military gain. Yes, it was another deranged program that promised not much danger and disaster. It was on November 25th that a meeting took place in a hotel in Bosch's home city of Lincoln, Nebraska. As Bosch sat and listened, his two DoD deep throats revealed the full story. Elements of the U.S. government were providing significant funding to contact what, in official terms, were known as non human entities or NHEs, regardless of the fancy name, they were demons. And nothing more, nothing less. Interestingly, the Collins elite believe that the entire UFO phenomenon is demonic, that demonic entities try and convince us that they are really extraterrestrials, that there is no God, and that the world's history of religion is a ruse. In that sense, it's the NHEs which are controlling and manipulating the domain of religion. Bosch's informants that there had been some very weird and incredibly violent deaths on the program, including the death of one technician whose skull was inexplicably crushed into pieces by unseen supernatural force. Of course, that's Rosemary Ellen Gully. Such was the concern that over deaths, which underneath the picture says she was someone who knew the connections between ufology and demonology, which a lot of people do say that UFOs are demonic, that aliens are demonic. We've heard that many, many times, right? Such is the concern over these deaths, which reportedly occurred in the latter part of 1990. A facility in Virginia that worked of the Collins elite increased dramatically, hence why Bosch had visited in 1991 to try and help thwart whatever it was that the group had recklessly unleashed. The highest ranking figures in the military were informed of what was afoot. This is in 1991. That's crazy. As the most senior officials within the world of American intelligence, intriguingly, and for the most part, the White House was left out of the loops. Of course it was. It may have been a case of what the president doesn't know won't hurt him. So, if the president was out of the loop, why was Bush in the loop? Almost certainly because of his links to both church and UFOs, something which put him in an undeniably unique position. As the group expanded its work, it began to look back in time, even to the point of the staff immersing themselves into ancient books and manuscripts, all in the efforts to try and understand the nature of demonic phenomenon and how to harness it, if such a thing was possible. So these books included Reginald Thompson's Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, Edward Langton's Essentials of Demonology, and John Dinkin and John Walker's 1601 publication, Dialogical Discourse of Spirits and Devils. Most disturbing is where the Collins elite is today. At least up until the early 90s, the group was doing its best to understand and utilize demonic. I can't talk today, I'm so sorry. The group was doing its best to understand and utilize demonic phenomenon and powers. Since then, however, they appear to have taken a very different approach. Today, they are of the belief that no good whatsoever can come from trying to deal with supernatural, dangerous entities that all want us dead, not just the enemies of the United States. The Collins elite approach today is not just different, but it's downright dangerous too. They're now of the opinion that only thing that can prevent what they believe is a potentially looming Armageddon of nuclear proportions is to infuse the public indoctrinate, who would be better and far more accurate term to use to complete or to come around to the idea that belief in God is the only weapon that will work. Most controversial of all, the Collins elite is not against the idea of forcibly indoctrinating people with Old Testament type teachings all across the United States. Now, in the eyes of the Collins elite, controlling the mindset of American public and having the entire population living in the fear of God situation is the only way to save them. Not a positive idea at all. Crazy, right? what the hell is this shit? I mean, seriously. What is that shit? Wow. Very, very crazy. And to think that that's still around today, somewhere, right? Man, I tell you, it is very crazy. All right, on to our last story. What do you guys think about that? Seriously, I mean, do you think the UFO situation in whole is demonic? I know a lot of people do. I honestly don't think it is. That's just the way. That's my opinion. I mean, it's just my opinion. Um, but it's crazy to me that they were doing all this stuff. I wonder, I might have to research a little bit more because I wonder if when they were doing that, is that when the barring of tarot readers and supernaturalists and stuff like that was barred in the United States? In some states, still barred. Um, like people can honestly petition. Like if I was to open a store here, right, a witchcraft store, people can honestly write to Congress or write to whatever and have me kicked out. It's happened. I've been friends with people that it's happened to. Not here in New York, but in other states, and they can be banned and barred from opening witchcraft stores. And they use the terminology, that it's not scientific. It's not proven. It's kind of like what we have to write on our podcasts, the statement that this is all entertainment. I wonder if that's when that began because they didn't want the real people. I mean, Sybil Leek and Aleister Crowley, obviously, um, they dabbled in dark arts and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is, I wonder if they stopped all of the people that used, for all intent purposes, what white magic, right? That's what people call it: white magic, light magic, good magic, whatever. It's all gray to me. But anyway, that's just my opinion too. But like, I wonder if that's when they stopped letting all the good, and I say that with quotation marks, um, witches got banned, so these people can spread that message of evil. Hmm. Definitely something to look into. All right. And our last story for today, and I'm going to tell you, I wasn't thinking about doing this, but I came across this article because when I research, I not only research on, um, excuse me, news sites and all that. I check out forum boards because I like picking people's brains. I like knowing what people think. I want to hear what interesting topics people come up with. And forum boards are one of those things. That's why I love that I'm moving all my forum boards to Discord because you can say whatever the hell you want on there. Um, as long as it's respectful, at least on my board. You know how I run my stuff. Um, but I came across this forum board, right? And it's called Critical Believers. And I came across this and it said the TV and your computer monitors can be used to manipulate your nervous system. Here is the proof. Read it and weep, right? Now, we all know, at least if you've grown up in the 80s, we all know about the subliminal messages um, in drive ins and movie theaters, the secret little showing of food so you get hungry and buy their products. We all heard that growing up, right? At least I did. Everybody I know knew about it. But this got me thinking. My brain has been going thinking, and I'm not going to apologize for how my mind works because my mind works in a way that I guess to keep me safe, I guess. Um, hopefully. Um, but there was a lot of ideas that popped into my head when I read this. Okay. And I'm going to bring up, let me see, do I have it? I don't. I just have it on there. Oh, no, I do. This image. Okay. This image, and if you're on podcast, obviously, this is I'll be on my Discord, um, but it's also on the YouTube under the video. This is the image of how the nervous system is manipulated by electronic magnetic fields from monitors. Now, picture is from a patent, an actual patent, um, number 6506148. The summary of it is basically computer monitors and TV monitors can be made to emit weak, low frequency electromagnetic fields merely by pulsing the intensity of the display images. Experiments have shown that the half hertz sensory resonance can be excited in this manner in a subject near the monitor. The 2.4 hertz sensory resonance can also be excited in this fashion. Hence, a TV monitor or computer monitor can be used to manipulate the nervous system of nearby people. It is thus apparent that the human nervous system can be manipulated by screen emissions from subliminal TV image pulses. The human nervous system controls, of course, everything from breathing and producing digestive enzymes to memory and intelligence. Okay? With that being said, so I pulled up this article, and now this one I kind of skimmed over it, but it's more talking about um when we watch TV or we are around electronics, there are positive ions that come into, your space and kind of drag you down and stuff like that. That's why they say go outside, get some vitamin D, get some, and we'll talk about that in this article here. And this is a new article that I pulled up, so it'll be in the description at the time that I upload this video. But um, I I've gone deeper with this because I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that came to mind when I was thinking about this. I've been ranting and raving to myself all day about this when I started reading it. But anyway, like I said, we all know that subliminal messages can do shit to you, right? But I didn't know it was this extent, or this extent. What the hell's that word even? To this extent, okay? Says you are mind controlled. Someone is always watching you everywhere. What consumes your mind the entire day controls your life slowly but surely. It's deadly. Binging on Netflix and Prime videos or playing video games the entire day will have a negative impact on mental and physical health and well being. It may seem nothing on binging Netflix or Prime Video or playing video games for a few hours straight, but little did you know that your sensory cortex and body nervous system, including your brain chemicals, are being altered without you being aware of it. You know that people who always watch television programs or binging on Netflix and Prime Video in front of their screens and playing video games the entire day, their mental behavior, nervous systems are being manipulative? Well, that's what you just told us. Now, listen, don't stop listening here because I'm not preaching, okay? I'm not preaching at all. I want you to be aware of this stuff, okay? This has nothing, binge watch, I don't care, binge watch, I freaking do. Do what you want to do, right? But a patent was approved in 2003 to manipulate human nervous systems and mental behavior through electromagnetic radiation. Yes, a patent. Like I said, 6506148B2, and that's down in the description below, in the info, so you can look it up and read it because I do have the PDF right here, the patent on it and everything. Obviously, for time purposes, I'm not going to read it all, but there are some points that I want to bring out. Anyway, Hendris G. Loos has filed multiple patents applications with success that dealt with manipulation of the human nervous system via a computer screen or television monitor. In his studies, he explains psychological effects have been observed in a human subject in response to stimulation of the skin with weak electromagnetic fields that are pulsed with certain frequencies near half hertz or 2.4 hertz, such as excite a sensory renaissance. Many computer monitors and TV tubes, when displaying pulsed images, emit pulsed electromagnetic fields of sufficient aptitudes to cause such excitation. It is therefore possible to manipulate the nervous system of a subject by pulsing images displayed on a nearby computer monitor or TV set. For the latter, the image pulsing may be embedded in the program material or may be overlaid by modulating a video stream, either as an RF signal or a video signal. The image displayed on a computer monitor may be pulsed effectively by a simple computer program. For certain monitors, pulsed electromagnetic fields capable of exciting sensory renaissance in nearby subjects may be generated even as the display images are pulsed and subliminally intensified. Okay? Now, he also said, the patent explains that even weak pulse will have an adverse effect on the human nervous system. Then he also explained that the pulse variability and strength can be controlled via software and explains how the regards to computer monitors, DVDs, videotapes, etc. can be remotely controlled by another or from another location. Certain monitors can emit electromagnetic field pulses that excites a sensory renaissance in a nearby subject through image pulses that are so weak as to be subliminal. Now, this is where my mind goes with this, okay? And bear with me because it's a lot. Like I said, I've been going over this since I read this article this morning, and I was just like, excuse me? Now, mind you, this patent, the other publications are from 1958. We got one from 1991, 1956, 1953. I mean, they've been studying this shit for a while, right? This is all that I just read in the other article, but going down, like I said, it shows everything, how it works and stuff like that. They give a list. Okay, so basically it says one, a method for manipulating the nervous system of the subject located near the monitor emitting an electromagnetic. I'm just repeating everything that was just said, right? Basically. So this is the source of the video stream of the claim 10. Within the source is a DVD. All right. So my mind goes to basically, what if, like, people are giving interviews? Say, we'll do the UFO, right? People in the UFO community. Say there's a disinformant. Okay, and I want somebody to answer this because I'm going to research it more, obviously. But like right now my mind is freaking blown. Okay? Like, if they can do this from a remote place, right? Who's to say? Okay, like paranormal investigators, we have an EMF pump, right? An EM pump works basically, it gives the supposedly gives the spirit more energy to come make contact. Whatever gives it energy to be seen or to give us voices on EVPs. So basically, an EMF pump produces an electromagnetic field in the environment, giving paranormal entities an opportunity to communicate or manifest, like in the present moment, right? Now, you can't hear EMF pumps. I mean, they do vibrate, at least the one that I had vibrated a little, but like, if I set it down and walked away, I couldn't hear it. I didn't know it was on. Um, unless I turned it on myself. But if like another person was to set it there and turned it on, I wouldn't know unless I looked at the red light, right? You can't hear it, you can't feel it, whatnot. I mean, obviously you might be able to feel it, but like not in the way that would be like shocking to you, right? But so my here goes my mind. My mind's thinking, okay, so you have disinformants in the UFO community, right? And I'm not saying who or well, I have no clue. I can say yes to a couple. Not I no. Let me backtrack. I couldn't say yes to a couple. I'm always on the fence with everybody. That's who I am, right? Not to say that there's a lack of trust, but I don't know these people from, a paper hole in a bag. Um, so I don't know whether to trust them or not. So I'm always on the fence. I take what I think they could be lying about and dismiss it and think what could be real and keep it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? All right, so here's my theory. What if these people, these disinformant people, are going on interviews, whether it be YouTube, whether it be news media like CNN you know, or they're giving interviews on podcasts or Facebook or whatnot, and they have this little device like an EMF pump, right? That they're playing that's going through their microphones. We wouldn't know, but emitting these things that to hype us up because that's what this is talking about. Like this is supposed to like get us excited about things, right? So they want UFO people to I'm stumbling over my words because I'm excited. Um, Not in a good way, right? But um, so they're telling us about UFO people wanting UFO people to get stirred up, right? And look even more crazier than we look to in the normal world, right? So they start saying all this stuff with this pump like right by their mic. And we're wondering why we're getting so excited about this news that they're spewing. And it's because of this shit. Is that possible? Somebody tell me if that's possible. I'm sure it is. If they've been working on shit like this since 1953, this is 2023. You know what I mean? I I mean I know they have stuff. I've seen it. Well, not personally, but like I've watched documentaries and shit like that. I know that they have like I don't know if it's the CIA at some form of government has a instrument where they can, you know, be 100 yards away and talk to you and you think you're hearing God's voice in your head. Kind of like the Havana syndrome as well. You know what I mean? So like who's to say these people that are trying to help us with UFOs don't have a device that can steer us either way while giving interviews? Does that make sense? Or am I just going nuts? That's the way I look at this thing. Because, I mean, this, I'm not going to lie. Reading into this patent, and like I said, the links in the description, this is fucking with our nervous system, right? This is messing with our nervous system. And according to this article, they're like, and I don't even know. yes, I love my science and I love learning about the human body and that. But it says, you think it's normal to have an emotional reaction? It's not normal. The fuck does that mean? It says there are a reason why airplanes and hospitals ban the use of cell phone. It's because the electromagnetic transmissions interfere with critical electrical devices. The brain is no different. It's a bioelectric organ that that's extremely complex and generates electric fields. Well, we know that, right? So doesn't the heart. Scientists can actually control brain functions with transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS for short, a technique that uses powerful pulses of electromagnetic radiation beamed into a person's brain to jam or excite particular brain circuits. This is the same type of thing described in the patient. So that they were experimenting this patent on is what they're talking about. So to what extent our computer monitors and television screens are doing this? This is why, for example, when somebody turns on their Sony PlayStation, the screen warns them to read the important health information before playing. Research has also shown that simple cell phone transmissions can affect a person's brainwave quite significantly, which is turns lead to effects on the behavior as well. Like, I mean, this is stuff we know, right? We already know this. I'm not naive when it comes to stuff like this. But now, I'm thinking, what more can they do with that? What more can they do with that? Like, I don't know. I don't know. It says electromagnetic radiation can have an effect on mental behavior when transmitting at the proper frequency. Putting it bluntly, they're damaging the living cells in our bodies and killing many of us prematurely. So, and it also goes on to say, do you know that when your body is overloaded with positive ions, which we call cations, you tend to fall sick, having body inflammation, and body's immune system is weakened. Like, I know this because of the fact that when people sage something, okay, I'm sorry to all the paranormal investigators. I mean, unless you get it from like real Native Americans who have put the intent in there, you can buy sage and put your intent in there, no problem. I mean, okay, but why a room feels lighter after people sage, and I'm just talking about the ones that make money from this shit, right? And make people believe that the sage is getting rid of demonic entity. Um, Sage lets off negative ions, which in turn balances our negative and positive ion. So if a place feels heavy and it's full of electronical shit, like my bedroom, right? This is where I do my podcast from and everything. It has my TV running, my computer running, two monitors running, everything, my mic running, you know what I mean? Everything's on and it gets heavy in here sometimes. But if I was to burn sage, it would lighten up because it's getting rid of all those positive ions. So I get that point of view. I get that. What I'm saying though is what else can they fucking do in these interviews and going on TV and these YouTube, right? I don't know. You guys tell me. Please. Please and thank you. Because I'd really appreciate it. What's your thoughts on this shit? Seriously, what is your thought? It says, putting it bluntly, they're damaging. Well, I already read that part. We have created something that is harming us, and it's getting out of control. Before Edison's light bulb, there was very little electromagnetic radiation in our environment. The levels today are very many times higher than natural background levels and are growing rapidly because of all the new devices that emit radiation. Is this why it's such a push to, I mean, we've done it to ourselves, right? But is this a push why everybody pushes the iPhone and Samsung? You know, like, I only say that because they're the two top, right? Why they push everybody to get a cell phone. Um, it manipulates our DNA. But my biggest thing is, and I agree, it's bad. It's bad. That's why, like, people tell me all the time when I go sit by water, I daze out because I do, because I just, it radiates me. And I love sitting by the water and listening to the waves go by. It's beautiful sound and it calms me. My anxiety is not up as much, right? But if these things are being beamed into our brains by disinformant agencies, do you see where I'm going with this? Or am I just going loony? I mean, that could be possible as well. Um, because, you know, I am loony. I'm not going to lie. But it got me thinking. And I was going off on myself all day today after I read this article, thinking, well, what the hell? Is this why when we watch news, I mean, yes, it is depressing because they talk about like all this stuff to where you watch in certain TV series about love, either like you'll cry due to the sad ending or get angry because of how the men cheated on their girl in the relationship, or you'll be happy because the couple got happily married and are going on their happily ever after, right? And you wish that girl too. Or if you watch like programs like singing competitions or dancing competitions, right? Or any other reality show, in the back of your mind, you're either wishing that you were as talented and capable as the person who's like performing this, or you're judging nonstop at the back of your mind on how bad they sang or how bad the performance is, right? And it's the same thing with video games. Video games, if you play them the entire day, all you want to do is fight till you win. And when you don't, you get frustrated, angry, or anxious. If I'm not like that with video games unless I have to repeat things over and over again. I don't like repeating things. That's just a normal thing in my life. I don't like repeating. But if I have to repeat the same, I'll get sick and I'll get physically sick. And almost like motion sickness sick. Because that's how I manifest my anger, I guess. Because I pull it in instead of let it out. Um, so I'll have to leave playing the game for a while. Um, but if they're manipulating shit like this, I mean, obviously it's already in these video games and TV shows and stuff like that. What are they doing outside of that in like interviews that we're watching and taking all in? Do you see what I'm saying? Who's to say like they're not like, for instance, say we're going to war, right? And the president obviously wants the American people on their side. And I'm not saying this is done. I'm not saying this at all. This is how my brain thinks. So, you know, in the very little minor waves that they're sending out while the president is making the speech about us going to war and people dying, they're playing like the Star Spangled Banner to get our, you know what I mean, patriotic, intense feelings up and stuff like that. Is that what they've been doing? Sending out this shit to make us feel like that? It's very, I don't know, guys. What do you think? See, this is where I wish I could go live so I could talk to you guys. Um, but I want to know what you think. With that being said, this has been today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed this. Please either join the discovery. Yeah, join the discovery. Join the Discord or the Shadows in the Moon group on Facebook. Let me know what you guys think. I really want you. I really, especially, I always love hearing what you guys think, but I really want to know what you guys think about this mind control shit. Um, I mean, we know that they're capable. We know. Is that what's going on? At least in the UFO community. Is that why everybody's fighting? This is what I think about. Maybe it's not just people arguing over simple shit. They're just putting this out there to make us go crazy. I don't know. All right, guys. Leave me a comment. Like, subscribe, share out the podcast. I would really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry that it was in two parts today. You know, what can I say? I don't lock my doors when I do my podcast, so anybody can walk in, and that's what I thought was happening. But no, it was just Chief making his way because my door was shut, and he wanted to be by me, so he laid by the door. But anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care, be safe, and remember, find something today that makes you smile with your eyes. Love you guys. Mwah.